Who is the one person that makes your blood boil more than anyone else? Can you picture them in your mind? I bet you can. I bet there isn't one person watching this who doesn't have someone in their life that fits that description. Do you live in a perpetual state of discontentment and hatred? Did you know that forgiveness is for you? We all have people that we don't like or we disagree with. And that is exactly the reason why we all have room for forgiveness in our lives. I'm passionate about this subject because for me, it's a question of my faith. Christianity has taught me that forgiveness is for me. It's not for the person who offended me. Through thoroughly researching what happens to us physically and mentally when we are angry and upset with people, and what happens to us when we are not, I have learned a wealth of information about the reasons why we should all strive to forgive. Life is too short to hold on to hatred. We need to move on and forgive each other. In this conversation, we will discuss what happens to our bodies physically when we hold on to hatred, like when we are in a stage of anger and rage towards another person. We will also discuss what happens to us mentally when we are angry. Last, we will discuss what happens to us when we experience the peace and relief that comes along with forgiveness. First, we will discuss what happens to us physically when we are angry. According to the Department of Health and Human Services, anger triggers several responses within the body. Anger is a very powerful emotion, and it triggers what is called the body's fight or flight response. In the fight or flight response, two hormones are released called cortisol and adrenaline. When these hormones are released, the body does several things. The brain sends blood away from the gut and towards the muscles in preparation for physical exertion. The heart rate, blood pressure, and respiration increase. Body temperature rises. The skin produces sweat, and the mind is also sharpened and focused. All of this is really a good thing in the short term, because if you have to run away or get away from immediate danger, it will be beneficial, and it also happens very quickly. However, in the case of unmanaged anger, the prolonged exposure to the constant flow of these stress chemicals can cause harm to many systems of the body. Some of the problems that can occur as a result of unmanaged anger are recurring headaches, digestion problems, abdominal pain, insomnia, and skin problems like eczema. Some other more dangerous health problems that can occur are things such as high blood pressure, heart attack, and even stroke. Now that we have talked about what happens to us physically when we're angry, let's talk about what happens to us mentally when we're angry. People who have unmanaged anger generally tend to deal with it in one of two ways. The first way that people deal with unmanaged anger is what is called anger explosions. Anger explosions are just what they sound like. It happens in people who have little control over their anger, and they let it out in episodes of rage. Anger explosions can be very dangerous because oftentimes they lead to physical violence. And some people who have this problem also will end up having a tendency to isolate themselves from friends and family as a result of this physical violence. The second way that people who have unmanaged anger tend to deal with it is through what is called anger repression. Anger repression is also an inappropriate way to deal with anger. Basically, what that is just bottling it up. Anger can only be bottled up for so long before it comes out. And the problem with anger repression is that oftentimes when the anger does come out, people with anger repression tend to let it out on innocent people like children. And this can be just as dangerous as an anger explosion. People who bottle up their anger also tend to lean towards having depression or anxiety, which is a whole slew of things all in and of itself, which can also lead to even more physical manifestations of disease and things that can plague the body. Now that we have discussed what happens inside of us physically and mentally when we are angry, I would like to discuss what happens when we choose to let go of the anger and to forgive. According to the Mayo Clinic, forgiveness can help to improve so many areas in our lives. It can improve relationships, immune system, decrease stress and anxiety, and the risk of depression. It lowers blood pressure, cholesterol, the number of medications necessary for a person. The benefits are numerous. Something interesting that I ran across during my research was a study that was done by Erasmus University's Rotterdam School of Management in the Netherlands. They published a study and they had students who participate in the study. What they did was they had half of the students to write about a time when they were deeply offended by someone and they ultimately ended up forgiving the person. The other half of the students, they had to write in depth about a time when they were deeply offended by someone and they ultimately did not forgive the person. They were still mad with the person about whatever had happened. After they finished with the writing exercise, they took both groups of students out to the same hill and they had the students to estimate the slant of the hill. What the researchers found was that the students who had written about the time when they forgave the person found that the hill was less slanted than the students who had written about the person that they had not forgiven. What this showed was that psychologically, people who choose to forgive see life generally as being less difficult than people who choose to hold on to anger, which is pretty significant and profound. All of these health problems have to make you think, right? If being angry can lead you to have all of these physical and mental health problems, then why not choose to forgive if forgiveness can relieve them? You're not doing yourself a favor by staying angry. You're not hurting the person who you are angry with. You're only hurting yourself. What are you so mad about that it is worth your own health? World peace might not be realistic, but would you settle for peace in your world? Who is the one person that makes your blood boil more than anyone else? Can you forgive them for your sake?